Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Open Your Eyes to the Universe. I'm Gabrielle Martin. If you're joining this program for the first time, Open Your Eyes to the Universe is a series of contemporary talks, conversations, open-eyed meditations, and also interviews with people who inspire and people who uplift others by sharing their wisdom, their insights, and their experiences with us. As we begin, the Universe team would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of the land upon which we meet. And we pay our respects to the elders of the past, the present, and the future, and acknowledge their spiritual connection to country. And we also acknowledge and respect the wise elder within us all and the collective wisdom of all those here this evening. So last month on Youniverse, we were in conversation with three inspirational women living diverse lives and each exploring and living the feminine in different ways. Angelica Fangel from Chile, a social leader, Maureen O'Connor from Australia with a background in education, organisational development and family therapy, and Philippa Blackham from England, an award-winning documentary maker and radio presenter. Our speakers were exploring the feminine from an empowering spiritual perspective, and you can check that out on our website. Tonight, we're going to take a look at soul consciousness with our special guest, Denise Lawrence. The practice of soul consciousness is known to bring huge benefits to yourself, to your relationships with others, and of course, to the atmosphere and the natural world. Denise is a highly accomplished meditation teacher, so I know you're going to enjoy what she has to offer. She's also a spiritual author, a broadcaster, and has been an international speaker on Raja Yoga meditation and related subjects over many decades. She travels widely, conducting retreats, seminars, and conferences, and more so online these days. She's a pioneer, she's naturally creative, and has a keen ability to translate metaphysical concepts into practical understandings and solutions to daily challenges in these postmodern and post-humanist times. Now, you may recall that Denise was with us on Youniverse in September 2020, quite a while back, and she was exploring the topic of internal balancing with us. I can recall one of her key messages about internal balancing, where she was saying that it doesn't mean you take off the top and the bottom of the scale, but rather internal balancing is about being able to span the bridge of the highest and the lowest, of the deepest dark and the brightest light. And that meditation gives us an inner power to stay balanced while experiencing that full spectrum of human emotion. So tonight, Denise is back with us and she joins us from France, and our conversation is on soul consciousness. We'll be discussing what is soul consciousness, what are the benefits of being soul conscious, how to practice soul consciousness, and we're going to take a look at how it actually transforms our inner and our outer worlds. Look, as always, viewers, we really welcome your participation and your questions, and thanks to those who've sent them in already. If any of you would like to ask a question as we move along, just please pop it in the chat box and we'll pitch your questions in the Q&A. So Denise, it's a pleasure to have you with us tonight and joining us on Open Your Eyes to the Universe for a second time. A very warm welcome back to Down Under.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. It is really delightful to be here, and hello from France. It's morning time here, and a beautiful day is about to happen. And soul consciousness. What is soul consciousness? Of course, consciousness. Well, what exactly is consciousness? Awareness. What is the meaning of awareness? What are the different kinds of awareness? And to be aware of yourself as a soul, what does that imply? What does that feel like? Who are you anyway? We're going to go into some of those ideas. And the first thing is that you have to really think about your identity. And most people's identity is tied up with their looks, gender, orientation, race, culture, color, class, professional arena that you operate in? Are you a sporty type? Are you a philosophical type? Are you having fun? um, what is your existence about? So these aspects of identity are external, and soul consciousness takes you to the inside. So, what are you on the inside? And the inside of what? Well, it is the inside of your body. We can't really say that the soul is sitting somewhere inside your body and that with a bit of investigation you could find it. People have tried a great deal, but what is really a soul? We know soul music is all about deep feeling and intense emotions. And in fact, the soul is where your feelings and emotions sit. Um, do you have a soul or do you have a body? This is really another aspect of soul consciousness. I think we would say body consciousness is I am a body and I have a soul. And soul consciousness is the other way around. I'm a soul and I have a body. Um, And we would say in soul consciousness that would be correct to identify the self. I am the being who gives life to this body. So the soul is really the animating force. And being conscious of the self as a soul means to really be aware of this subtle, intangible, almost indefinable energy that gives life to the body. Sometimes people speak of the spark of life, and in fact, the soul is like a spark of energy, light, and it contains all the capability of awareness, consciousness, perception, interpretation, intelligence, feelings, the whole spectrum of emotions. Even when you talk about your heart, the heart is really the core of the being. So the heart is really in the soul. And your heart is not the blood beating pump that keeps us alive, but the soul actually gives the energy to the heart to beat and send the blood around and keep us alive. The soul gives the energy of the lungs to breathe, and all of this is really unknown in the medical and scientific world. It is suspected, it is talked about, but because it is not physical and you can't find it through normal investigation means, it remains an idea. But how do I know these things? How do I study these things? There is a whole area of study which is called spiritual study, which is kind of philosophical, but it's all to do with the dimension of human experience, the inner world, and it is non-physical. So soul consciousness also means that you are really aware of yourself and operating, knowing that you are a spiritual being operating through a physical body. And your physical body is material. In fact, it's an object. But when you're soul conscious, you really make a separation between thinking of yourself as an object and thinking of yourself as really a being. And this is important because there is a lot of objectification of the human body. You were talking last time about the feminine, and one of the issues that comes up is that women are usually considered as objects and sexual objects, and that is the objectification of the woman, who is thought of in terms of the body, the attraction of the body, and then whatever else is not of interest. And so for women and men to think of themselves as souls means you start seeing the person. You acquire the capacity to look right through the body and see the being inside, which means that soul consciousness is about shifting your perception and shifting the way you use your eyes. You see, when you're in body consciousness, you just see objects. When you're in soul consciousness, you see the invisible, the intangible behind the object, and you relate to that. It's very interesting that you're in Australia and New Zealand, very conscious of the Aboriginal peoples, and of course I lived many, many years in America and had good connection with the native peoples in United States and Canada. And the ancient people were naturally very conscious of the energy behind what you can see with your eyes. So I would say that that kind of consciousness is pretty close to soul consciousness, but not exactly as I have come to understand it. But there are so many different levels and degrees of perception. So perceiving a person as a person, not the body. You have this expression, don't judge a book by the cover, which doesn't refer to books, it refers to people. And people dress a certain way, they will present themselves in a certain way so that people will consider them according to that way that they have positioned themselves. But a soul conscious person will see through that, because what you want to deal with is the actual person, not the presentation that a person shows you, which is like a mask. And soul consciousness is to understand the necessity of mask, but not to be limited by the mask. Your face is anyway a mask, and you express whatever is going on in your being through your face by your facial expressions. And you can also hide what is going on inside by putting on a facial expression that doesn't correspond with who you are. And so this creates a dichotomy between who you are and who you present yourself as. And the thing is that in body consciousness, you lose contact with who you are, and you adopt the mask and consider the mask to be the self. Soul consciousness says, of course, you have to have a mask, you need a face, but do not lose contact with the owner of the face, the being who is looking through the eyes and seeing another person's face, looking right through that face and sensing the person within, the person behind. So soul consciousness means that you are activating a capacity for perceiving beings, and you become very clear that what you're perceiving, the intangible, the subtle that you're perceiving, is actually the reality. and you are not confusing the covering with the reality that is behind the covering. And so consciousness means that you're all the time functioning with this dual world. You have the external, visible, tangible world, and then the internal, invisible, intangible world that you can perceive directly with your mind, because your mind is an instrument of the soul. Now, a lot of people don't really look at the mind like that, but in the practice of spirituality that I do, which is called Raj Yoga, it's all about the study of the mind and how it works, and the soul, who is the wielder of the power of the mind, the power of intelligence, the power of personality. And so it takes us into the realm of psychology, spirituality, and all of those things about how you feel. So what is a soul exactly? It's not really a what, but it's more like a who. So in soul consciousness, you think about this question: who am I? If you look at the question, what am I? You'll say, okay, I'm a spiritual being, but then you want to go into the aspect of who that is, because every individual is a spiritual being. And all spiritual beings are, in essence, pure, peaceful, loving, bright, beautiful, blissful. Now imagine that your essential state of being is that you live in a state of bliss and in a dimension of light, and then you come into action through your body. You do whatever you decide to do, and you respond to what's ever around you according not to what it is, but according to who you are. So this is a shift of consciousness. Normally, or in body consciousness, which is the contrasting and opposing consciousness of soul consciousness, you function according to what's going on around you, and you feel according to that, because your consciousness is absolutely stuck in your organs of sense perception. You're in your eyes, in your ears, in your nose, in your fingers, and you are absolutely pulled into the material world to such an extent that it's very easy to lose contact with the inner world, and most people just don't have contact. So we need to practice to see the contrast between the moments when we're body conscious and the moments when we're soul conscious, because it keeps shifting one to the other. Your default position is body consciousness, even though the essential state of a being is soul consciousness. But what has happened to the soul? The soul has energy, and over time, the energy of the soul has been depleted. And so when any device that you may have runs out of energy, runs out of juice, then you start thinking about, where's my charger and where's the electric socket so that I can charge it up again, because otherwise my machine will be dead. And it's the same with life. The soul is the energy that makes everything function. And when the energy level is low, it functions at only a small percentage of its full capacity. And so soul consciousness is something that we practice because it makes it possible to re-energize the depleted soul. And signs of a depleted soul are that you do not have control over your emotions, you are easily manipulated, you come under different influences, you can be more ruled by your emotions than your wisdom. And I'm here in France, and there's an expression there's an expression that's used in France which is quite amusing. When anybody cannot control themselves, they say "c'est plus fort que moi," it's stronger than me. And if you analyze that idea, that the things that are influencing you are stronger than you would say, well, that is not a good arrangement. I need to be in my power so that there isn't anything that is stronger than me. And this is very advantage in relationships, and also when you're experiencing discomfort, mental, emotional, physical discomfort. Everybody experiences this, but then it takes over. Why does it take over? Because the soul is depleted. So you say to yourself, well, if that's the issue, then I need to take care of this situation and regenerate my energy. And so this is what meditation is about. This is what yoga is about. And in a few moments we will do some meditation exercises to practice this. Because although the state of soul consciousness is the essential original condition of the soul, but in a depleted state, then body consciousness is the default condition. So that means you have to make effort to get back into your power, effort to get back to being who you are. And this is what is meant by spiritual practice. So let us take a moment and just practice this. So what should you do? How should you practice this? First of all, where exactly is your soul in the body? Although it's not really in the body, but it's associated with the forehead. And so in the center of the forehead is known as the seat of the soul. So just think of yourself as a beautiful, bright star that is just by the forehead. Feel yourself to be there, and consider yourself to be behind your eyes. You're this extraordinary, subtle star of light looking out through your eyes. And just feel that distance for a moment. You are listening through the ears. There is this space between your essential self and what you perceive in the outside world, where you are on the inside. You are returning to your natural state of peace. What you're seeing may be disturbances, distractions, but what your being is calm and still. You may hear loud noises, dissonance, but yet your state of inner quiet is there. You are more powerful than the impact of your sense perception. Go deeper inside. You can feel your body, your skeleton, your skin, and feel yourself being not the same as your body. Just feel your light, your strength. And your attention on the self brings you to a different dimension. You feel yourself to be in a dimension of light and able to interact with the world of matter from that space. Really, you are a master when you are detached in this way. You're not denying your body or the material world. Simply, you have shifted your position. And you are connected with yourself primarily, and then you operate in the material world. Sustained peace, sustained brightness, sustained freedom is there. This is soul consciousness. You're coming more and more into your power. You are genderless, colorless, completely free from the impact of other people's projection. They project on your body. They cannot see you, but you can see them. Your inner eye is open. You see yourself. You are aware that everyone else is like this, a spiritual being functioning through the material body, but they are caught in it, and you are getting free. Hold steady and savor that inner bright quiet. Feel the energy of your being that your energy is getting consolidated. It is not getting wasted. The energy of your being is turned upon itself. You feel stronger, lighter, brighter, stable and steady inside. You are truly the center of your own inner universe. And you come into action through the body, and you do as you wish. And what you do and what you wish comes from this place of inner serenity, stability, clarity. Feel yourself and know that this is indeed what I am. And as you go deeper, you discern who you are, your individual vibration, your speciality. Your importance in the bigger, greater, wider world. Everyone has a place which is essential and important. You're getting to know yourself. Then gently reconnect with the body, and you're ready to act, talk, move around from this place of inner quiet. Thank you. So I hope that this was an interesting experience for you and that you will experiment with it. You know, a lot of people think that meditation is something that you have to sit down for and have a special space and quiet and candles and music and so many things. And that's very nice. But soul consciousness, it's really good if you practice soul consciousness on the go. Because what we're trying to do in this practice of Raj Yoga is to be what is known as a karma yogi. Karma yogi. So yoga means connected, and karma means you're in action. So when you're, to really try this very consciously and in a focused way, when you're going for a walk or you're hiking, you're in that rhythmic movement of the walk, and you can really practice, I am the soul making this body walk. I am causing all the movement of the body to happen very deliberately, very consciously. And when you're in relationship with people, or when you're driving around in your car, and sometimes people are behaving badly or antagonistic or something like that, you practice pulling back and being a detached observer You're in your peace, and you're not under their power. You're the one who calls the shots. This is a really good practice to do while on the move. And so, of course, soul consciousness definitely impacts your relationships, because it is normal. People play games with each other, they manipulate each other, they try to, be the dominant one. We live in a world of victims and predators, and soul consciousness is a positioning from the inside where you say, I'm in my power. I'm not desiring power. I am powerful already. And whatever anybody else is doing, that's what they're doing. But soul consciousness means I am always aware of what I am doing. I am the proactive one. You're always getting into situations where someone wants to dominate you or push you or make you feel low or high or whatever. And the soul conscious person says, I know who I am. And you know it and you feel it. And you hold the space. And the atmosphere fills the area where you are. And then the others can be actually pulled a little bit into their own soul consciousness. And then it becomes an interaction between conscious people, people who are aware of the essence of one another. And this is really the building blocks of the world we want to live in. We are operating from the inside to the outside, and very selective. What do I feel? What do I think? I am the master of that. If something external wants to make you afraid, okay, there is a situation that is fearful, but you decide, is it really dangerous, or is it just a game where something or someone wants me to be afraid, but I decide whether or not I'll be afraid. Fear is actually something that lets us know, okay, if it's dangerous, then, I need to take care, but it doesn't mean I need to be locked in a paralyzed, frozen state, or run away, or shout out, or whatever. No, you stay in your position and evaluate the situation in a real way, and then you know what to do and with what intensity and for how long. There's one very important attribute of soul consciousness that I think is very essential, and that is that it enables us to be aware if we have any prejudices. And actually the world we live in is a world where most people operate on the basis of some kind of prejudice. You have in most parts of the world a gender bias. The males feel one way about themselves, another way about the females. The dominant are the males, the more subservient are the females, because you're not seeing the person, you're seeing the body. But when you're soul conscious, the question of male and female becomes really very secondary. I'm a being, I have a body. It happens to be male or female. But the soul in soul consciousness is not limited by the body, and consequently is not limited by a prejudice. And what is the problem of prejudice is that it causes you to do incorrect karma, or it causes you to do an action based on an evaluation that is inaccurate, and therefore you will do something that will cause you harm. Forget about it'll cause the other person harm, it'll cause you harm. And soul consciousness really is helpful to let you operate in this world in your own best interests, which means that you don't find yourself regretting what you did or how you function. And of course, your relationships become different. Another prejudice a lot of people have is to do with color and race. And when you have a prejudice, it changes your perception so that you are unable to see what's in front of you, but you see through a filter that prevents you from seeing the person. And then how you operate is according to the filter. And then what you expect as a consequence of what you are doing will not be. Something else will be what happens, and then it will be not so good for you. Forget about whether it's good or not for the other. Because what soul consciousness makes us aware of is everything that happens to me is of my doing. And so it becomes very important to take charge of who you are, what you are, how you are. And then the very good thing, I think, very good, is that you understand that you are accountable and you expect to be held accountable. And when you do that, you interact with people in the natural world with greater care, valuing the natural world, valuing people for what they are, and you're not limited by those projections. So, Gabrielle, what is your thought?
Denise, there's lots of things happening there. Thank you. I'm loving the way that you described soul consciousness so simply. Actually, you're just saying about it's shifting my position, and that's an easy thing to do. That's an easy switch. Just shifting my position to be connected with myself primarily, and then operating in the material world. And so many very gorgeous sorts of experiences and coming from that, sustained freedom, peace, serenity, stability, clarity. And I think that's a very succinct and easy way to understand how to actually be soul conscious, that it's not deeply mystical or necessarily esoteric. It's something within the reach of all of us, and very much part of who we are innately. And the way that you were sort of talking about it being body consciousness is the default position, and yet soul consciousness is our essence. But I wondered if you could just, and I like too the way that you were starting to say about this is how you kind of practice it. You bring it with you into your day. It's not something that you kind of sit down and do just when you're meditating, but it's something that you're very conscious of when you are interacting with others. And it reminded me of a meditation commentary you did many years ago, decades ago actually, where it was just about that, how you're almost like how your daily timetable looks in terms of what your inner focus is, irrespective of your outer focus and outer obligations. Can you just expand a little bit more on that? There's a few questions about that around just how do you really practice this in a daily way? And how does it change over time, your ability to be self-conscious? Like, would you say, Denise, that that you're pretty much in that zone all the time? Are you thinking that, feeling that, seeing that? is it something that takes a long time to master? Hmm. Where are you with all of that?
Oh, yeah, there are so many levels of it. You see, I mean, I've been doing this practice for all my adult life. So it's nearly 50 years. That's a long time.
Hmm.
And when you begin, it's all very experimental. And you are, you know, it's like you have a new toy that you're playing with. But gradually, it, you have to understand that it's like a doorway that takes you into a dimension of yourself that had been somewhat neglected, which is your inner world. And then it takes you all the way, slowly, slowly, over many years, to have contact with your subconscious as the deepest part of your place, the deepest part of your being. And it is a place where, um, the hidden parts of yourself are your inner wounds, your, things that have happened to you that may be trauma, deep karma, maybe from another time. And all of this is part of you, but it's a hidden part. And soul consciousness, when you start, it's a practice for just interacting with the world and with people. But as you go further, to discover yourself is a lifetime work. And you're discovering yourself, you're creating yourself, you're discovering layers and layers and layers of your being that might otherwise be confusing or denied or something like this. But the whole person, the complete integrated person, where you're completely, you accept who you are, you recognize who you are, and you recognize your value, your importance. Um, I talked a bit about the soul being depleted. And
You
so in
did.
soul consciousness, yeah, you really realize how much you were
Mm.
depleted. In body consciousness, you just don't get it. In soul
Mm.
consciousness, you get it. And you get what the damage is. And you get the resonance. It puts you into a resonance, which is very healing. And everybody needs to be restored and healed and brought back to life in lots of different ways. So even though you're working with this for your whole life, there's no end to the dimensions and layers and subtleties that you come upon as you do this.
Mm.
And so it is extraordinary to realize how amazing you are. Sometimes there's an
Mm.
experience that happens that, wow, the best thing there is that I am me. And you
Mm.
just don't want to be anybody else.
Mm.
Take away jealousy, envy, all of that. No, that's so superficial. When you're really in touch with yourself, it's like there isn't anything better than that I am me. And then from there, you're really in your power. And and if somebody doesn't like it, it's like too bad.
Mm.
You
Mm.
don't want to please anybody. You know that you are really deeply okay. And it's a very, very good thing.
Yeah, I love the way you talk about it as layers, and I think the way I relate to it too is very much it's a lifelong journey, really, and you just sort of become more and more subtle with it. And for me, I know when I'm stepping outside of it because I lose my inner contentment. So that's a good warning sign for me to radio. to really re-engage again with that beautiful experience of soul consciousness, and a lovely feeling of self-acceptance that comes with it. That's, yeah, it's hugely valuable, isn't it? It feels like it will move on for lifetimes as the more that I develop that soul conscious aspect, and make that my default rather than switching it around. Yeah, making soul consciousness the default position, re-emerging it. Denise, there's a couple of questions that are coming here, and they're a little bit connected. It's someone's asking here if you could give us an example. You talked about fear, and you talked about, understanding, is this particular situation or moment dangerous, and what do I need to do to mitigate the risks, or am I being overcome with fear? And I found it really empowering when, your comment around I can choose to be afraid or not. It's a choice. And someone's asking here, could you please give us a real example of a situation in your life which could be termed fearful, but you overcame that fear? And I'm pretty sure whatever you're going to say is probably going to resonate with all of us. Fear is an experience that is pretty much part of being human now.
Yeah. Well, you know, sometimes you feel that, okay, now I have to, I, how shall I put it? There's a project that is a possibility for you, but it's big and it's a bit outside your range, but it's calling you. And so you say, all right, I'm going to go with it. But everything inside you on the other side says, you can't make it, you can't do this, it's not going to happen, da, da, da. And then you say, no, if it doesn't happen, it's okay. But I am going to do whatever it takes to make it happen and just see if it'll happen. Because it's calling me and I have a right to try this. And so it creates a sort of contest between two different parts of yourself. There's the part of yourself that's really real, that says, go for it, get this thing. And there's another part that says, oh, well, what if it doesn't work out? And oh, you'll look like a fool. And, all those internal messages start functioning. And then you get other people who will say, you know, uh, people are going to react and they won't like it, and people are going to be jealous, and this and that and the other, and can you handle it? And they're going to be against you. And then you say, well, let them, you know, I'm going to do this. And the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune notwithstanding, if there are obstacles, I'll get past it. If there are difficulties, I'll move around it. I'll maybe do a tactical retreat, consolidate my energies, and then go for it again. And if you don't try, you'll never move, you see. And life is about moving forward. It's really not about just dying before you actually did anything and then it's too late. So
Mm.
that's the thing. You
Mm.
have to deal with the internal resistance.
I'm reminded of Anais Nin and a quote from one of her writings that life shrinks or expands according to one's courage. And that's the thing, isn't it? If you hold back and you don't step into that space, then you're definitely contracting. And yet, by just taking that moment and working with that fear, noting it, but stepping into that space,
Mm.
yeah, it's so confident building. And got something else coming through here. Someone's asking a question about, they're saying ego is attention seeking and love can be transactional and temporary. Can you please share your experiences of this and the spiritual permanent love?
Uh, Love is doing actions that are of benefit. And those actions can include thoughts and feelings as well as physical things. People mostly think that love is something that you get, it's an energy that you get. And that if you get lots of love, it means you're loving. Because what happens with people are very depleted, right? That means the love energy in an individual is depleted, and they get attracted to someone who they think is going to fill that hole. And then they call that love, but it isn't love because you're on the take and you are deceiving yourself thinking that you are, giving it, but actually you're not. You're on the take and you're attracted by something or someone which is deceiving you because you don't get that you're empty and you are trying to use that other person to fill the empty space in your soul, which they can never do. And this is why so many intimate relationships go wrong, because each one is preying on the other. Because if you are empty of love, then you need to go to the source where there is a lot of love, which is a higher being, a higher power. But for you to be a loving person, it means that you have to understand the relationships that you're in and give. Loving and giving is basically the same thing. And if you are doing something to show that you're the dominant person or you're the smart person or this or that, and you call that love, you don't know what you're talking about. But and you wreck the relationship by doing that. And this is because of like people's ideas about love with nothing to do with love. It's all really more, is interesting, about ego, showing off. I am the cool one, and I'm dominating this other person, and by me dominating the other person and they become subservient to me, that means they love me. No, it doesn't. It means you're cruising for a bruising because they're not going to take it for very long, and the whole thing is going to be a lot of suffering. The ego is that really it's a mask, in my opinion, and it's a presentation of yourself which is false. And sometimes ego is called false ego. So it means that you are, thinking that you are cool because you have a beautiful body, or you have a nice motorbike, or you have a big house, or you have a big reputation in your profession, or you have lots of money, and you that's your mask, and behind it there's nothing, is emptiness. And then your actions are all about trying to fill that emptiness, which involve preying on other people and causing damage. And all of this because of being spiritually empty and in denial of that.
It's quite deep, isn't it? That huge difference in how we get mixed up with it. Look, while we're on ego, there's another aspect coming through here, and that's what's the difference between discovering the layers of my subconscious versus regression therapy and other therapies like that? So this is relating to our conversation a little bit further back around, removing the layers and coming deeply into that state of soul consciousness, and how you were talking about touching on the subconscious.
Well, the subconscious is pretty much inaccessible, and people are trying to find what's driving them. And so I think regression therapy is one of those. Not that I'm an expert in that, but in terms of the subconscious that I'm aware about, your subconscious is where your negative karma is sitting and is driving you. And it's to do with character flaws and trauma and how that distorts your being. And you need to get in contact with what that is, and and kind of straighten the distortions that have happened as a result of traumas. And I think a lot of character defects are a reaction to traumas, which are sometimes, you can call it as an ego defense mechanism. But in meditation, deep meditation, going really deep into the subconscious, is really where you have to come to terms with yourself and come to terms with your dark side and come to terms with how you have been corrupted, how you have been contaminated and poisoned by something or another, and that that it's not permanent, you see, because you can become free from that. And I don't know if regression therapy does that, because I'm not so familiar with it, but the meditation practice that I do does, because it's also a practice of purification and purging. So purification is that whatever has got into the soul in terms of violence, in terms of neglect, in terms of, all sorts of things that can happen to people, they bend you away from your essence, and they make you into a monster in some degree. And there are all sorts of people who display these things, but they're so out of touch with what's the cause of it that becomes their mode of operation. And so I don't know that I can really make more of a comparison, because I'm not so familiar with regression therapies, but that's what I can say about it.
Thanks, Denise. I'd like to pitch this question to you. Someone's saying, do I need to see myself as a soul or feel myself as a soul? If I see myself as a soul, that means there's someone who is seeing the soul. I sometimes get confused between the two statements.
Understand. Well, the thing is, your inner eye is an instrument of perception, and you can use the word see, but it won't be a visual perception. It'll be just like you perceiving yourself as a spiritual being, but your thinking is so physical that you have to use analogies like seeing, which is a physical thing, and perceiving can be physical or not physical. So then you have to really think about what perception is. And if you see a dream, you're not going to see it with your two eyes, because whereas your dream is in your mind, right? So you're seeing with your mind's eye, and some of these things, you may be a visual type of person, and then you will use the word seeing. Some may not be visual types, they may be more sensing, and then you would use the word sensing, but it's just inner perception. We talk about the third eye, and the third eye is something that enables you to perceive something which isn't visible, right? And you need to, if you have a third eye, you need to see the physical world, and you also need to see the subtle dimension that goes along with it. So if you are a three-eyed person, you can perceive a lot more than if you're just seeing the superficial surface of things.
Mm. That makes sense. Um, this is perhaps a question that's just a little bit more outward focused. It's saying it's hard to be soul conscious when there's so much injustice in the world. So, how do you manage the social injustice?
Well, there you have to understand destiny, you have to understand karma, you have to understand that there are energies that are functioning that are invisible, and you coming from a place of desiring justice, and you're seeing something that doesn't correspond to your idea of justice, so you're evaluating it on the basis of what's in front of you because you do not have any knowledge of what led to that. Because understanding about these things also involves taking up the idea of reincarnation, because all the things that are going on in the world today, which are pretty awful, have something to do with karma, something to do with the fact that the world is at the moment fragmenting at an accelerating rate, and everything that can possibly go wrong is going wrong. And this is a good reason why we need to practice spirituality, because you need strength to be able to see these things and survive having to see other people's pain and abuse. And also, what's important for a person who develops spiritual power is that you can transmit spiritual energy to alleviate the situation. And this is at a higher level of meditation, because we're talking in a fairly straightforward, simple way, but you can go deeper and deeper and higher, and it becomes very, in a way, off the radar, because it's such internal work that it doesn't really get talked about, but it is there.
Mm. Leads on from that question in a way. I don't see much soul consciousness in our world leaders at the moment, most of whom are men. Are women more capable of being soul conscious than men? And if our world was filled with soul conscious beings, what would our leadership be like?
That's a very interesting question. It seems that women are oriented more towards the inside, and the society that we live in, mostly keeps women on the inside. You're in the house, you're looking after the inner part, it's easier for women to develop the inner side, because the pressures on men to be external, to go out and get the money and defend the land and hunting and shooting and all of those things, it's like very much part of the culture. And so taking a leadership role, being the alpha male, and doing all those things, that's the world of the present time. And it's a very body conscious world. So the male ego, and what you also have is what I call patriarchal women, who like to play in the man's world, and the men will let them in on condition that they put a lot of restrictions and difficulties on other women. And the patriarchal men will use the patriarchal women that way to maintain the status quo. So that's a performance that goes on. But turning to the idea of, if everybody would be soul conscious, what would our leadership be like? I think we're quite a long way from everybody being soul conscious, but you are anyway in a leadership position somewhere or the other in your life, even if it's just between you and yourself, me, myself, and I, who's the boss here? And you have to take a position of leadership, which means that you set the rules, you set the principles, and there is accountability in the family, in friendships, in all sorts of dimensions. It's all about relationship. And if we're talking about political leadership, someone who leads the country has to be someone who is there to serve the country. And to serve the country means to do what is beneficial for the country. What happens nowadays is, people try to serve themselves, and they want power and influence and money and property and protection because they're weak. And for a person who's got lots of weapons and police force and military and whatever, to prey upon weaker people is a sign of weakness. So I think the leadership of a soul conscious world would be people who are strong, and their personal strength gives them the capacity to ensure that everyone has what they need and they feel good, and you sustain them with your vibrations and you take care. The leader has to be not somebody who makes everybody follow, but who sustains everyone and who makes people feel safe and inspired, and it's all part of a harmony. So the leader has to be essentially harmonious and deploy that harmony throughout the world that they are in a position of power. You have to understand power, and you have to know how to use power. Mostly people are weak and they craving power and they don't know how to use it because it corrupts them as soon as they get it. But a soul conscious person is a good leader if they know how to handle power. They don't get corrupted by it, and they use it for the benefit of everyone concerned. And I think that one by one, we practice soul consciousness, we learn these things, we are studying to become leaders of that type, bit at a time.
It's a good question, isn't it, really? Because we know what's so wrong in our world at the moment. And it does seem to be moving from chaos to greater chaos. So it's really apt, isn't it, to be starting to imagine what soul conscious leadership would look like, and what a world would be like in terms of relationship with self and others, and animals, the nature, environment, when the humans, the beings, are in that state of soul consciousness. Because I kind of feel if we can't imagine it, then we won't be able to step into it. And
Of
perhaps that
course,
is
you have to see it to make it a reality, and that seeing is with your inner eye. That is absolutely essential, yes.
yeah, yeah. Yes. Look, got another question here for you, Denise. Is there's two actually, but how do I make the space between myself, the soul, and what I perceive, something that's bigger, so that I can stay uninfluenced? So someone's asking this question about remaining uninfluenced.
Well, it's an ongoing process because there's a lot of resistance. And as you continue with the practice, the resistance becomes more. And so you have to keep up with it and be consistent and continuous with your practice and your study. And then you're making something that is a nice idea into something that is sound and solid and real. And you have to be very patient with the self. It's not like, you just create 2 meters between yourself and your body. That's still very physical. Um, it's really all about coming into your power, being who you are, and gradually you find that, yeah, it is natural. But it takes a while because it took a long, long time to lose it. And so definitely it takes a while to get it back. Eternity is a long time. And when we say I'm a soul, that means I'm an eternal soul. That means, what have I been doing throughout time? Well, I don't know because you don't remember. But you have to think about that. Yeah, it took a long time to lose your power, and you have a short time in which to restore it. But nevertheless, you need time. And so we have to be patient with ourselves. And when you fail, you just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going, because the important thing is to not give up.
So, how do I assess if I'm making progress about being soul conscious?
I think don't worry too much about assessments, because it's very frustrating, because you always want increments that are visible, and it might be your progress might be happening in microns that you can't see. But I think that it's really about putting one foot in front of the other on this long journey to come back to myself, to find yourself, to restore yourself to your original fullness, and just keep going. And every so often, sit down with yourself and do a full and rigorous self inventory, and give yourself a bit of space in between those times so that you can actually see the progress. Because it's to make yourself into something that's real is a slow process. It's like you're watching a tree grow. No, you don't sit there every day and look at it, because you won't see the growth. But you come back to it after a few months or a few years, and you'll see, yeah, there's growth. So you have to think of yourself as a great oak tree or something that's growing and growing, 1,000 years.
Yeah, a work in progress. Denise, just before we close off for another meditation commentary, is a question here around how did you learn to meditate? Can you explain how you learned to meditate, and also the process of meditation, and does it involve the divine?
Well, it definitely involves the divine. I remember when I started Raj Yoga, uh, um, they asked me, why do you want to, why are you here? I said, I want to learn to meditate. And then they said, well, do you believe in God? I said, that's private, it's nothing to do with it, you know. But um, then slowly I found that the soul has to restore itself to the full potential by making contact with the divine. And that is really what yoga is. So we uh, will go through a course which gives you a few pointers, but the journey of spiritual development is something that's between you and the divine. And so you have to make a commitment to yourself and explore and study. There is a big study that goes with this. And that is really the foundation of the meditation. So studying those things is key. And then experiment and play And, you know, it's not like learning to drive a car. You start with learning to move the gears and everything, but to become a really expert driver, you have to experiment and practice and find out. And this is like that too. It's an art, it's a skill, it's a lifelong personal development. Yeah.
But that's a lovely note, I think, Denise, to push pause for a moment and then go into another meditation, outlining that process of how you meditate, soul consciousness, and that connection with the divine, perhaps. Over to you.
Thank you. So, looking at it systematically, first of all, sit yourself where you're balanced and just notice the different parts of your body and make sure that you're not in any tension. Relax your shoulders, your feet, your hands, your eyes. And meditation is a decision. I'm going to turn within, gently, slowly pull yourself in. The sounds and sights of the external world are there. Your attention is within. Think of yourself as a being of light, deep inside. A tiny point of light. Become that light. And feel your body external to yourself. Like you are a light inside a cave. Go into that light deeply. And feel the soft peace that is your essence. You are out of time, beyond space, in another world of light. You are pure and beautiful. Feeling and being the spirit within. In that world of light, you are away from your body, free. You're surrounded by light. And you become aware of of another light, the source, the force, the energy of the Supreme is there. As if a beam of light reaches you and you let that light in. Through that beam of light, energies of love and peace start pouring into you. Intense light fills you. And pulsation of energy pours into you. Waves of love move through the light and merge into your heart. The beams of light and waves of love and peace fill you with energy. This is a being who sees you, loves you, touches you deep inside, and you open yourself to that presence, allowing that energy to heal you, to restore you, to bring you home from a long, long journey. You become still and quiet. And gently bring yourself back to reconnect with your body and to feel that you have an endless, eternal someone who is with you, a special someone. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Excuse me. Thank you, Denise. I was certainly riding that wave of soul consciousness and connection with the divine. It was a beautiful commentary. Thanks so much, Denise.
Thank you.
And, I was just imagining what a world would be like, filled with soul conscious beings. Our viewers,
One by one.
one by one. Viewers, thanks so much for the questions that you've asked. We've managed to pitch most of them, and always grateful for your participation. Denise, look, our thanks to you. So much to thank you for your truth, the clarity of your divine intellect. And I was referring to you in the intro as a visionary and a courageous pioneer. So thank you for all of this. It's been a pleasure and an inspiration listening to you. And on behalf of all the viewers, our thanks and our love and our blessings to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. And it's been lovely to be with you.
It's lovely to have you back here in this part of the world too, even though it's online. But let's see if we can do something about it happening in physical space now that COVID restrictions are opening up for us. Let's see. Thanks, Denise, so much. Viewers, I'm wanting to let you know about some of the things that are happening. There's a mega sale on at the Eternity Inc. online bookshop presently. Eternity Inc. has a full online range of books, and you'll see a lot of Denise's things there to please you. It's a 50% off everything in the online store, and that's at www.eternityinc.com.au. You will need the 50% off coupon code, which is wisdom, and you won't see that on the takeaway slide in front of you, but Jan will put that in the chat box. The coupon code, you simply need to enter that at checkout, and the prices will automatically be discounted by 50%. Eternity Inc. also has Soul Journey, which was created by Denise, and it's available as an immediate download, MP3, for only $3.50 for the entire album. They're beautiful meditation commentaries, and I'm sure you'll enjoy them. Much loved meditation commentaries by Denise, and that's pretty much feedback from everyone who ever listens to them. So they've been re-released due to ongoing demand for those originals. So once again, it's a big 50% off all Eternity Inc. products. Just tap in the word wisdom at checkout and you'll automatically receive a 50% discount. Now, excuse me, if you'd like to subscribe to Open Your Eyes to the Universe to receive monthly updates, then please email us at special.events@au.brahmakumaris.org. And finally, I'd like to tell you about our next episode of Open Your Eyes to the Universe. It's on Saturday, the 23rd of April at 6 p.m. That's AEST, so daylight saving will have gone. It's standard time now. And it'll be with Carolyn Ward in conversation on a topic called A Time for Healing. We're going to close out tonight's episode of Youniverse with a song from Earthstar. It's called Om, and it's off the album called A Being of Love. And again, Jan will put that in the chat box for you if you'd like to refer to it. So until we see you again in April, take moments throughout your day to turn within and experience soul consciousness. That's your natural peace, your natural calm, your happiness and love. And as Denise said, it helps you stay aligned, away from influences, away from being manipulated, and enabling you to experience the deep benefits of really turning within and primarily relating to yourself in that inner way. And of course, share the soul conscious reality with others too. So until then, Om Shanti and good night.
later.